He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
All right, simple show today, and I'm playing with the format. So this is one reason why I like when you guys email me at aloha@alexmarlow.com. You tell me what you like. You tell me what you don't like. It's very helpful. I see numbers, but numbers are data is a guide, not a god. So I see when shows do well, and I'm trying to play with the various formats. I'm talking about adding maybe an additional hour during the week so I can do some of these long form interviews. I think they're really important. I feel like that they're something that enriches me, and I think they enrich the audience as well. But this one, we're doing a very simple show. It's going to be a straight interview with Xaviaer DuRousseau from PragerU. I love PragerU, one of the best groups in the world. I donate to them every year. I will do anything they ask. They're great partners for us at Breitbart as well. And Xavier is one of their Gen Z influencers who is just a super compelling guy because he was a Black Lives Matter activist. And he basically got red-pilled watching PragerU videos on YouTube. And now he is one of their activists convincing younger people about our values. This was a terrific interview. I was looking forward to this for a while because he's one of the top guys on my list to talk to. And that's it. That's going to be the show for today. So let me know what you think. I always want to hear your feedback, but these things have a long shelf life. So if you can't get around it today, definitely check it out over the weekend. But I think you're going to like it. I think you're going to like this stuff. Those of you who've not done my long form interviews, I had a great one this week with Brian Callen, comedian, another amazing guy. And I get a lot out of these things, and it makes me work muscles in my brain that I'm not always working when I'm just mowing through all the news headlines. So I'm excited for this one. Check it out. Thanks to our producer, Misty. We missed another Hawaiian shirt Friday. I'm sorry about that, but we'll be back on it. I got my fresh Hawaiian shirts, so they're in the closet. I saw them earlier today. I didn't get around to throwing one on, but you'll have to forgive me. Here's Xavier, and we'll talk to you next time. All right, guys, this is a fun one for me today because once I'm done with the show this evening, it is the beginning of birthday celebration weekend for Molly Marlowe. She does the comments at Breitbart News, and she also is my beloved sister. And we're starting the birthday weekend, and we are both steak people. And I'm going to be searing my steak on the Xaviaer infrared grill. So the Xaviaer grills, this is the best hot grill. You go to besthotgrill.com. It ramps up to the highest heat imaginable, which allows you to get that great sear on all your meat. Now, you could turn it down a little bit, but the main thing is that this grill heats up fast. We're talking 3 minutes. You can grill outside. It's raining here. I don't care. I'm not going to be out there very long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the slow cooker. I'm going to get the barbecue out. I'm probably going to do a tri-tip, and I'm going to get my favorite rub on there. I'm going to slow cook. It's going to come up to temperature. I'm going to rest it. And then when I'm done resting it, what I'm going to do, I'm going to fire up that Xaviaer, and I'm going to lock in a sear that's going to make the most unbelievable caramelization zone crust. We're talking caramelization on the top, making like a candy, crispy, delicious. I can't wait. I honestly can't wait. I'm so excited. We call this the pre-kend in the Marlowe house. That's the Thursday evening rolling into Friday morning. It's not quite the weekend. It's the pre-kend. We love a great pre-kend, and it's going to be steak night, and it's going to be with my Xaviaer infrared grill. I honestly can't wait. You can hear the enthusiasm in my voice. If you go to besthotgrill.com, made in America, high quality product. You can get a really tiny one. Mine's pretty small, or you can get a bigger one. Whatever you want. This is a good people, good company, and it is the proper way to cook a steak. You fire it up and you get that hot heat. That's what it's all about. And that's how you can really nail that cook. Perfect steak. And it's really not that hard. It's fun. It's a great project for all of you. If you're not into grilling your own meat, you've got to get into it. So much healthier. I can't say enough. besthotgrill.com, Xaviaer, check them out. All right. One of the emerging Gen Z voices in the conservative movement that is very compelling is Xaviaer DuRousseau. And he's a PragerU personality. He's just launched a new YouTube show. It's called Respectfully Xavier. It airs Tuesday and Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, but that's when it's live. It's fun to do it live. You do the chat, all that stuff. But it's up there for you. There's already some episodes up there that are really top-notch, a lot of history, a lot of culture, particularly for younger people in your lives. But I learned quite a bit in the first show, just checking it out myself, and I'm kind of an old-timer now, at least compared to Xavier. But Xavier's got an amazing story, and I really wanted to have him on the show so that we could start talking about it. Xavier, so you started out in political activism as a Black Lives Matter activist. It is an amazing thing that you could go from a BLM activist, which is a pretty recent movement, to now you're a star of PragerU. I mean, that's sort of a whirlwind. You're spending your 20s in a very, very exciting way. Let's talk about it. Like, how did you get involved with BLM at the start? Let's go back to the beginning.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It has been quite the journey going from BLM to conservative activist. So yeah, growing up, I was just in a very woke household. I was always told to hyperfixate on race. I always tell people, like, I was in a situation where I grew up in a town that was 95% white, 10,000 people, and I would spend my summers in Chicago, in this area of Southside Chicago, super rough neighborhood. So I would have this dichotomy of going back and forth, of never feeling white enough or always feeling like I was too black for the white kids, too white for the black kids, and having family members who were all woke, always telling me that race was so important, that I needed to hyperfixate on race all the time, that it was always going to be the forefront of my life. So because of that, I was always just online, on social media. I didn't have a big following, but just to my little micro following, I was always talking about just microaggressions and woke causes. So when I started, like, promoting the BLM movement, I was already doing that before 2020. And because of that, but when everything happened with George Floyd, a lot of my friends just in my community were looking at me, expecting me to be this beacon of light to speak on it all. And I certainly took that opportunity, not realizing how wrong I really was.
Yeah, so let's go back just even a step before. So you're of a certain age, you're Gen Z. So it feels like a lot of Gen Z people, at least most of the ones I come in contact with, that social media is almost like breathing. It's almost like you have to have this dialogue with yourself publicly. It just seems like that's the standard. And is that the case? Because that's how it feels. Whatever's going on inside of you, you need to vocalize it on these social media platforms, which is, I think, can get you into trouble, but it makes you a little bit more accountable to the quality of your arguments, because there's all these people evaluating them all the time.
Yes. I mean, growing up, I've always been chronically online, and now doing this all the time, I'm just even more chronically online.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're in Gen Z, especially, there's kind of this expectation that you're always posting every single thought on the internet. And once you start, it's like it becomes more and more addicting, to where every single thought, every single conversation that you are having, you start posting about. And then with the way that the algorithms work, every time that you're talking about something online, the algorithm starts making you see more of that content. So since I was already posting woke content, and even now that I'm posting conservative content, what the algorithm does, it's constantly showing me more and more of the conversation that I'm already having, to where you get into this little reality where you think that's the only thing that people are discussing. You think that people are only discussing racial issues, only discussing political issues, because that's the box that these social media tech giants are putting you in.
Yeah.
So you just keep going deeper into the rabbit hole.
Wow, it's such an interesting point, because it does feed you with the stuff that you're engaging in. They give you more of it, because that brings you back to the platform. Were there any voices in the activist left who were really persuasive to you? How did you get recruited really into the BLM cult, so to speak?
You know, that's an interesting question. I don't know if there's anyone in particular, I would say. I've just always really loved pop culture. So honestly, as cringe as it is to say, I would just follow the lead of a lot of just celebrities in general. Beyonce and Jay-Z, anytime they were posting a woke cause, I was all over that. I thought Obama was the coolest person in the world. Like, it's just in general, the pop culture left was so woke that I just indulge in all things woke.
Yeah,
I
and
wouldn't say that there was a particular
and that's been my
though.
theory. Is my theory? I'm on the opposite of Ben Shapiro on this. I think feelings don't care about your facts. I think people are really feelings first, and they see Obama's cool and Jay-Z's cool and Beyonce's cool, and that's good enough for me. And it really takes a lot of time and discipline to understand that they don't have the facts. I think a lot of people are really just like it feels good to support Obama. I mean, look at how cool Beyonce is, and that you start from that premise, and that's where we as conservatives, until about 6 months ago, it felt like we really were starting off in a hole because of that.
Oh, 100%. You know, that's something that a lot of people don't realize the significance of, is this delusional idea that people have because of the internet, that because you relate to what these celebrities and cultural figures are showing to you, that means that they understand every element of your life. That's what Kamala Harris tried to leech onto, trying to be this relatable sister girl, trying to be everybody's rich auntie. And she was trying to do that in order to win over culture, because that's what makes people engage with you more.
She's trying to be everyone's rich. I mean, that's genius. Trying to be everyone's rich. That's exactly what she was doing.
It's so true, though, because I remember being a kid. I'm. This is so embarrassing to talk about. To this day, it's so embarrassing. But my background on my Facebook cover photo and on my phone was literally the photo of the Obamas, Beyonce, and Jay-Z all together, because I thought that was the coolest, just most badass thing that you could possibly post on the internet. So that, to me, drew me in. And I'm like, okay, well, he listens to the same music I do, talking about Obama. I'm like, okay, so he must totally understand my background and where I'm coming from. It's delusional. And then the older you get, or the wiser you get, and the more you start to pay attention, you realize that people are presenting to you exactly what they know that you want to see, because they want you to subscribe to all the different ideologies that they're putting onto you, or buy the records that they're selling. It's so fake. All of it is so fake, but we do have to win over culture. And unfortunately, that is something you have to participate a little bit in as a public figure in order to get people to hear you out, or to buy your records, or to go see your movie. You have to play this game of making people think that they know you better than they actually do. It's just how the internet's working these days.
It's just amazing. I just hadn't put it together that Kamala is a funt. She's a fun aunt. Like, that's what she is. She's a funt. But she is.
I would love to have mimosas with her.
Yeah, no, it'd be good. No, and she'd cook. I mean, she's got those recipes. I keep hearing about them. I'd love to try one. So, do you think Beyonce really did have the best country album of the year, or is the Grammys rigged?
Well, first of all, I have to say Kamala Harris and that collard green story was still the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. That is enough to get you exiled from the Black community. What do you mean you clean your grains in your bathtub? Ew.
I don't know about that. No, I think it's all. I think she's a big hoax. Like, her whole personality is. I've written about this extensively. We don't need to do the whole interview on this, Xavier, but I will tell you that I think that I don't buy she's that great of a cook. That's it. I'm calling it. I don't believe it. I don't believe she's a great cook. But I'm kind of serious about this with them insisting Beyonce is also the best country artist. What are they doing here?
Okay, so I have a really unpopular opinion on this, and it's pretty nuanced in my take on it. So I didn't listen to all of the country albums that were in the category, so I am not going to say comparatively that her album was better than all of theirs. And I also want to say that Beyonce is also self-aware that her album was more than just one genre. As someone who I still listen, even though I think she is a questionable individual, I still do enjoy a good amount of her music. She's aware that her album wasn't just country. Most of her albums are multi-genre at this point. She hasn't made just a pop album since 2009, and she even nominated songs for Best Rap on the same the country album, Best Pop Song on the country album. So the significance of her album had more to do with her paving a way for more Black country artists to be signed, because there was a bit of a drought of a lot of these Black country artists trying to be signed. I've seen stories of she's actually a conservative. Her name is K. Michelle. She was an R&B artist and tried to switch over to country. But the Hollywood industry does do some gatekeeping when it comes to race and genre. They want to keep Black people in the R&B hip hop section. They want to keep white people in the pop country section. And there tends to be rare instances of intersectionality, but a lot of the times, like I've heard Justin Bieber talk about the fact that when he made an R&B album, he was mad he couldn't get an R&B nomination. Drake made pop songs and couldn't get a pop nomination. Wow. So when Beyonce made a country song years ago, a song called Daddy Lessons, nobody was willing to play it on on country radio, and there was a lot of backlash. So I actually do respect the notion of why she made a country album, and I don't think that you can ever condemn someone because they're getting accolades. It's not her fault that she's getting accolades, but I do think that her album was strong. But again, I didn't listen to the other country records, so I can't say whether or not
it's not her fault. I don't blame her. It's just that she's got by far the most Grammys of all time, and there's no way she's the best artist of all time. It's and by far the best. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So obviously there's something cooked here, and it just feels risky to me if you're the Grammys that you would do this, where they just want to elevate certain people and not other people. And when it's too transparent that that's happening, I think it compromises the integrity of the whole apparatus, because if it becomes just purely a popularity contest, then if it becomes about the image you're trying to project and not about the artistry, then I just think it's a big decision that it seems like they're making, that we're just choosing to elevate certain voices and not others. Let me get your quick take on Kanye and his wife with her basically no dress at all. He usurped all the attention. He sucked up all the attention out of the room. And now the LAPD is looking into it. Instead of solving actual crimes, they're now looking into Kanye's wife. Do you have a take on all that?
You know, I thought it was a bit appalling that he just brought his wife out there completely naked. I mean, there were children in the room. There are children on the red carpet. There's even this one photo I talked about on Respectfully of you see this child kind of peeking around the corner and she's completely naked. And I'm not a prude when it comes to like fashion and wherever. If you don't want to be like, I don't expect everyone to wear a turtleneck on a red carpet, but there is a level of decorum that is expected when you are going out in public. Yeah. So for her to come out just everything revealed, it's scary. It's like I kind of want to ask her to blink twice if she feels like she needs help, because this is just bizarre. She looks like a lifeless doll, and then she's trying to pull down the pantyhose as if there's something to cover up. It's like, we see everything already. She might as well just be wearing a bottle of Windex at this point.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, she definitely has that look, like the Kim Kardashian but in a hostage video type vibe. Yeah, that's kind of where she's at. I just find it amazing the LAPD is looking into it because of all this, especially all the grooming that goes online with all the the porn industry and all that stuff. But they're really focused on Kanye's wife, which is the whole industry is such a disgrace to me, especially after the Diddy stuff. There's nothing they can do to make me any more appalled after all the Diddy allegations are out. It's just like, well, it's just the most debauched place on earth. You've been out in LA though, so you've been. Do you have any connections in the music industry right now? Because I feel like I've got some friends who are around your age who are peripheral to the music world. They seem to be more, I would say, Trump curious these days, which is, I don't think that's come through necessarily, but I feel like this could be the next big thing potentially.
You know, I do have a lot of friends that are in the entertainment industry. And when I moved to LA 2 years ago, I thought that everybody was going to hate me because of what I do and that I'm such a vocal conservative and Trump supporter. But the second I got here, I was embraced. I've been loved. Wow. Like in the influencer spaces, because I hang out with a lot of people in the influencer and entertainment spaces who have nothing to do with politics. And in the beginning, it was them whispering to me, oh, yeah, we secretly love Trump. We secretly are conservative, but we just can't talk about it because we'll either get canceled by our fans or we'll lose brand deals. Or I have a lot of friends who particularly do PR and management in the entertainment spaces, and they themselves are also conservative, but they tell their clients, you can't speak out on these different issues because then you're going to lose your money. So part of my just goal in the last couple years has been getting more of these figures to be more vocal, to be more public, and it has actually been successful. I've helped get a lot of different celebrities and influencers to be more vocal, at the bare minimum to not subscribe to all of the woke nonsense publicly. And that has been an incredible thing to see. And I tell everyone, I'm like, your favorite celebrities, athletes, and influencers more often than not are not woke. They hate this woke stuff more than anybody, but they are forced to say it. And the reason that they've embraced me is because they respect that I'm out here saying what they thought that they weren't allowed to say, but more and more of them are realizing that they can speak out on their values. And if anything, they'll acquire a whole new audience rather than isolate the ones that they currently have.
Very well said. So let's go back, because I skipped around because you're an interesting guy and a lot of questions. But let's go back, and I want to hear about the moment where you finally decided the Black Lives Matter stuff is not for you, and you're starting to move. Did it happen all at once? Was it a phase thing? Take us through that evolution.
It was an extended time period, but throughout 2020. So essentially what happened was I was literally just bored during the pandemic. It started as a joke. I'm not even kidding. My friends we were sitting bored watching this show called The Circle on Netflix. And my friend goes, you should apply to be on this show. And the premise of the show, it's kind of similar to Big Brother if you've seen it, but essentially it's like a popularity contest where you get to either be yourself on the show or you get to be a catfish on the show. So like an internet person that's not who they actually are like present, or they're not who they're saying that they are. And you're in this building, but you don't actually meet your competitors. So you really can lie about who you are. You only meet them through this like internet device called the Circle on the show. Well, I ended up being cast for the show out of 25,000 people after applying as a joke. And the character that they wanted me to be was this woke white sorority girl named Samantha, whose entire MO was teaching people about activism, being a BLM activist, being woke, all of that. So as I'm getting ready for the show, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to debate people on this show. I need to really know the ins and outs of all things that are political activism. So for the first time, I decided I was going to study the counter arguments without any confirmation bias, where I wanted to see what does the mind of a conservative look like. So I made this whole I planned on making a whole series debunking PragerU videos in preparation for going on the show, and I was going to release all the videos after, but instead I ended up debunking myself on almost every single topic that I had believed in at the time. And it was a mortifying experience because it was this realization that I have been indoctrinated my entire life. I now am in this position where I either have to blindly go and be on this reality show and get all of this fame and love and celebration for being this woke icon, or I had to stick to my guns and back out of the show. And that's what I ultimately ended up doing. I backed out of the show 3 days before I was supposed to fly out to London to film the show. And I spent a couple more months just realizing my entire worldview has just been flipped on its head. And I finally decided to make my first video, and the rest was history.
It's so amazing. There's so many moments like that happen in your life. I remember for me, I had a debate on the pro-choice side of the abortion issue, and I just found myself not buying the arguments that much. And I debated it successfully. I won because the other guy did a terrible job, but it was like, I didn't really buy the arguments I was making. And I was kind of thinking that there's a lot of holes in these. If anyone's good, they can get them. And another thing was the war industry. Is that I've been a Republican my whole life. I'm 39 now. So it's, 21 years of being a Republican. And we were all taught to shill for the war industry. And then you talk to one veteran who explains, oh yeah, I was over in Iraq and we had no idea what we were doing. It's like, really? Interesting. And you vote Republican too? Oh yeah, but they're terrible on this stuff. And you just have these light bulb moments where you just think that, wait a minute, my arguments are no good. They don't actually pass muster. And I feel like people in your generation, Xavier, are coming to that maybe quicker because of the flood of information, that if you can just take your emotions out of it, take a step back and think, well, why do I really believe these things? Do I believe them because they were yelled at me, or because someone at school told me to believe them? Or do I actually buy the argument? If we can get to that point where people are taking in the actual arguments, we're going to be unstoppable because we're already catching up in the culture in a major way. But what do you feel like resonates more now with younger people? Is it, and it could be a both, it doesn't have to be an either or, but is it people who are the most persuasive in their arguments, or is it people who just have that cool factor that I just identify with their lifestyle?
I would say it kind of cuts in between. It's more who's the most authentic. I feel like Gen Z, well, first of all, young people are inherently rebellious. So when you're constantly telling us you're not allowed to think this, you're not allowed to say this, you're not allowed to vote this way, otherwise you're going to be canceled. At a certain point, young people are just like, you are not going to keep telling me what to do because none of this makes sense. And when Gen Z, when we look over at millennials, no shade to millennials, but they tend to have the worst elements of the generations before and after them. And Gen Z does not want to be anything like millennials, because it seems very just inauthentic. Like, you can tell that these people do not believe in the things that they're preaching. So Gen Z wants nothing to do with that. We just want things to be real. And the reason we are so adamant for things to be real is because our reality that we've walked into is a mess that's being handed down to us. We can't afford to buy homes like our parents did. We can't afford to we can't afford to do anything. And all we do is work. We're a generation that gets told that we're lazy, but we work an insane amount of jobs to just barely be able to afford the lives that we are trying to live. So we are out here doing what we have to do to get things to be better. And that's paying attention to what's actually happening rather than allowing a narrative to be fed to us. The mainstream media isn't adapting well to the fact that Gen Z is able to acquire the truth faster than then they can craft a lie. So we're seeing through all of this different nonsense. And also, you have a lot more successful people in Gen Z at a young age. Well, while I just said there's a lot of people in Gen Z who can't afford their lives, there's also a lot of really wealthy people in Gen Z because we've been able to take advantage of the internet, and we're able to be these like crypto millionaires at a young age, or be able to make an insane amount of money through social media and TikTok shop. And because of that, you learn a lot about taxes. So on all sides of the spectrum, Gen Z is just over it. We don't want to play the silly games that generations before us did. So we're just looking for what's real, and conservative values is what's real.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's all these generational burdens. There's advantages, and then there's burdens. I'm a millennial, and so we were told that if you just work really hard and you get into the best schools and you take on a mountain of debt, then when you're done with your schools, then they're going to hand you a Lexus and a country club membership, and that didn't happen, and that was a total freak out for a lot of my friends that they did all that stuff, and then all they had was a pile of debt, and they weren't remotely close to being able to get a house or anything like that, and that's a big letdown. The other one is we were told that if you just work hard and not have a family, and then you'll be very satisfied with just working for a corporation like Facebook. Like that's more meaningful than, having a family and having people love you around you. But if, you're the senior vice president of Facebook is proud of you, then that's great. Then your life is great. Like that was also bogus, and people are just figuring that out as well. But it feels like that your generation, I'm guessing, wasn't even raised with that. If I just stay in school and do a good job, then I'm going to be rich and powerful one day. So how do you guys deal with that? It feels like, is there a bleakness? Is there a hopelessness to it, or is there just a different, because I want to try to understand, because I want to see the next generation feel like they can live the American dream. Is there that sense in your generation? Because there's a lot of evidence that suggests the American dream is very hard to get right now.
That's kind of a hard question to answer. It really just depends on the mindset of the person, because there is a huge range there. You have a lot of people who feel hungry and excited to take over the world, basically, when it comes to either AI or crypto or social media. Like there's a lot of different rising industries that make a lot of young people feel excited because they know that if they start early, they are able to capitalize on that. You have a lot of people in Gen Z with just entrepreneurial spirits because of the different, whether it's video tutorials, or you even have people like Grant Cardone, who has a lot of young fans, where we're watching people like him and listening like, okay, we're taking notes. We have access to the real information that's going to make us successful, rather than depending on a university to teach us how to be successful.
Yeah, he teaches people basically money stuff. So he's a financial kind of guru guy. So people are getting an education online for free that's as good as what they would be getting in the classroom, basically.
Exactly, because a lot of people in Gen Z realize, like, why go to school to learn about business from a professor who doesn't even own a successful business, when I can go and actually listen to people who can tell me how to actually be financially literate. So there's a lot of people in Gen Z who are extremely hungry and excited and motivated to be successful. But then there's a lot of Gen Z that feels completely demoralized because, again, they're working 2 part-time jobs and a full-time job, barely making a decent salary, or their salary is what was decent 20, 30 years ago, but the housing market is 10, 20 times more expensive than what it used to be. So it's like no matter how much you work and try to get ahead, you can't get ahead. So there's a massive wealth gap, I feel like, both in the mindset and the finances within Gen Z, but both sides of the spectrum are blaming left-wing and progressive ideas for why it's so difficult to acquire all the great things that prior generations were able to get with way more accessibility.
Okay, so let's talk about your journey to PragerU. So now, you're out of BLM, you're talking about more conservative issues, and you end up PragerU, one of my favorite conservative entities on the planet. I've been listening to Dennis Prager since probably before you were born, and it's one of these things where I just think it's an amazing thing that they're doing. And your story, I guess, is you were watching the videos. Like, that's where it started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was watching PragerU videos, and particularly people always say what was the biggest aha moment. It was realizing that BLM was raising all this money and it wasn't going to a single black community, black business, or anything. And I'm a firm believer you can follow the money and see people's values. So when I saw how fraudulent they were and Act Blue was, funneling all those donations to progressives, I just started looking more and more into what does the other side have to offer? And because PragerU was where I was getting a lot of my conservative ideas from that I wanted to debunk but was now loving, I've always just wanted to work with PragerU in whatever capacity that I could. And I became a member of Prager Force, which is like their youth program. A few years ago, they were actually accepting videos from young creators. So they were posting some of my videos. So I was very grateful for that because that helped me get some of my start in gaining a little momentum and just the conservative media space. And I learned so much from PragerU. And 2 years ago now, I ended up getting a role here as a digital manager for our kids department. I was hosting one of our kids shows as well, and just always asking for an opportunity to put my voice more and more out there. So when they allowed me to finally have the shot of representing PragerU on a bigger level on social media, on TV, and it went so well, it led to me becoming a personality here, and I'm very grateful for that. It's like a dream come true.
It's very cool. Well, we're so excited for the show. Tell me about what you want to accomplish with Respectfully Xavier.
I want to continue impacting culture. I want to continue getting people to understand that politics and pop culture are synonymous. People are always trying to say that culture is downstream from politics, but I would argue that not only is it the opposite, but both are simultaneously true. So I wanted to have more into pop culture, getting conservatives to understand what is really going on in young culture, in Hollywood, in all these different spaces, but also getting my more cultural audience to understand this is the reality of progressive ideas and how it's destroyed our country. This is the reality of conservative ideas and what it means to be pro-American, and also just diving into history and getting people to understand that history repeats itself. So there's a whole lot of different conversations that we're having on the show. I want it to be as nuanced and as candid as possible. So I'm hoping that people understand the message I'm trying to put out there.
Yeah, so Xavier, I don't even know if you're familiar with it, but Andrew Breitbart, our founder at Breitbart News, he was the one who coined the phrase that culture is upstream of politics, and he was exactly right at the time. And I think that's why Obama got elected, because he had very little qualifications, but he was a cultural, just a cultural sensation. And it's the same thing as how Trump got elected. Trump went from never being a politician to being president because he was very popular in the culture. But now, ever since Obama, which was, I mean, his first election was 16 years ago, it's the politics has been at the centerpiece of the culture since then. So it's really kind of reversed in a way. And Andrew nailed it at the time, but the politics in this country has been a more powerful force than Hollywood, than entertainment, and it's really driving a lot of the culture now. And we have this historic opportunity, I think, on the right, that my whole life we were hoping to be the cool kids, and we're finally the cool kids for the first time in decades, maybe ever. And that's a huge opportunity. So what would you like to see for the conservative movement in general so that we can keep building our footprint to really get a stranglehold on the culture so that we never go back to the way it was, where it was just Beyonce and Obama take a photo together and then you win the election? Like we can't make it that easy for them anymore.
I just want people to pay attention. The more you pay attention to, just take a step back and pay attention beyond just what you're consuming every single day. Whether you're consuming politics every day, consuming culture every day, you have to have an understanding of both to understand how they have an influence on each other. Because as long as it took for us to win culture, we can lose it just like that.
That's right.
So we need to know what is going on, even if you're not somebody who wants to be a part of the cultural conversations, you at least need to understand what's happening there. And I did not know that the founder of Breitbart was who actually coined that term. That is so cool.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing. He has so many great quotes, but that's definitely the one that he's most famous for. The last one, I had this on my list. I'm kind of going back a little bit. I had to ask you about this. You were taught a little bit that it seems like that you were taught sort of to never trust white people. And I found this to be really interesting because I feel like the left sees race all the time. And I grew up I'm not an old guy, and I grew up in LA, so maybe it's just my upbringing, but I don't see race that much. And I feel like the left is always reminding us to always see race. I'm not saying we don't have a complicated racial history that doesn't matter. It does matter to some degree, but we never do anything productive about it. We just talk about it and use it to divide each other. And what is your perspective on race in America right now? I mean, is it an optimistic time or is it a pessimistic time? Because the left is insisting we talk about race all the time and we don't really need to.
That's an interesting question. I grew up in such a progressive dynamic where I was always being told to fixate on race, and all that did was divide. All that did was make me confused on what box am I supposed to fit into. So I do think that a lot of conversations about race tend to be really toxic, but I think right now we're at a point where people are so over it and so over white people being told that they're racist by default. I think people are ready to move on from that narrative. I like to talk about culture, and you can attribute a lot of elements of culture to various races, but the whole reason that culture is cool is because other cultures get to partake in it, and we get to blend cultures. That's what makes America so cool and so powerful, that American culture has embraced so many inspirations from other cultures coming along, and then them assimilating here is what just continues to build the culture up. So when we talk about race, I don't want it to be a negative conversation, but you have to realize that the people on the left are always going to try to make it a negative conversation. And it's largely because they weaponize fear. They weaponize fear, especially for Black people. They tell us that we need to be afraid of the police because we're Black. We need to be afraid of white people because we're Black. We need to be afraid of oppression, etc., because they know that for a long time, fear of racism was our Achilles heel, but everybody's over it. We're done playing those games. It has nothing to do with race that we're wanting to build a wall. It has nothing to do with race that we're getting rid of DEI. It has everything to do with we want to see our country be the best that it can be, and that is a colorblind conversation.
Brilliant. Xaviaer DuRousseau. He is a PragerU personality, Respectfully Xavier on YouTube and PragerU.com. New episodes Tuesday, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern. He's also the subject of a big 3-part series we're doing at Breitbart News. The first piece is already out when this show goes live, and we got 2 more to come in subsequent weeks. Xavier, you got an amazing voice. If people are on social media, where should they go to keep up with your stuff?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Threads, all at Xavier.
Wow.
That's irregular spelling. It's Xaviaer. And my Twitter/X is at Xavier D, because that's the one username I cannot get to be just my first name.
Yeah, amazing stuff. Well, it's really great to be in touch, and keep up the great work. We love PragerU. Make sure to hit the subscribe if you go over there. Don't go check out one episode. Subscribe so it goes into your algorithm. We got to play the game, guys. We got to support the good people. PragerU and Xavier are very much good people, and we love them. Thanks, Xavier. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you so much.